Hello and good evening to Man's Model Moments Midweek Model Meet. This is week 4 of the regular new setup. So I just had a bit of an itch. Oh, what have I got there? Got a hole in my... It's one of the things you see on stream. I don't know, I think it's a... I'm not sure what it is. It's a piece of something. Just that's going to annoy me now. I'm just going to be able to see that. Shouldn't be too bad though, because obviously this is the build week. Now, a couple of things on that. So obviously, the build week is going to be something that's going to be announced, and people can build along with me. And obviously, it's going to be the Type 45 destroyer. However, there have been a few people who have ordered the destroyer that don't yet have it. It's in transit. Part of that is because we've just had a bank holiday in the UK. Part of that is because Royal Mail's 48-hour delivery services, not 48 hours. So I think tonight what I'm going to do, and you may have seen the change in the lineup for the following week, is I'm going to do a lot of prep and start things off this week. But the first week of September, so next week, I'm also going to do a build. So we'll still have the 4 different types of meat through the month, but I think I'm just going to change it up so that week 4 in August and week 1 in September are both Type 45, and then that will allow people who are only just going to get the Type 45 in the next couple of days to kind of catch up, so that they won't be kind of left out of that. So I think that's probably the best way to do it. So, but before we get onto that, let's just see who's in tonight. We've got Adrian Hook, we've got David Markey, we have Dave, World War II scale models. We've got Drew, SBS1W1. We've got Stuart. We have George Davis. We have Graham Green. We've got Keith. We have the Little Things Junkie. We've got Julian Hall. We have Idwar Williams. We've got Steve Horman. Good to see all of you. We've got John Alex Scale Modeling. Good to see you, John. So, John, your package went off today. I know you got the I sent you the tracking number, so fingers crossed all that works out as we hope. Who else do we have in tonight? We've got Paul Dye. Good to see you, Paul. We've got Howard Kendrick. We've got Nick Johnson, Mystery Box Nick. And let's have a little look. Just people saying hello to each other, which is always nice to see. We've got Danny Gable, got Travis Thompson, Martin Ward, we've got Phil. And I think that brings us to the tariffs, is it? Yes. So Airfix and Chill was a little bit spicy on Monday. I had no idea that Jim was such a hardcore MAGA fan. And I don't care about people's politics. I really don't. You can follow whatever political party you believe in. That's all fine. I think the problem comes when you start to express those in a very outgoing way, let's say. Kind of the imposition of political views as fact, I always find problematic, which was some of the issue I had with some of what was being said on Monday, because it was just plainly bullshit, basically. Having been 30 years in international business, isolationism is the most backward of potential policies. It's no nation on earth has the resources it needs to become completely separate, unless it wants to accept a different style of living. Modern living, however, so the US has a lot of natural resources, huge amount of natural resources. It lacks rare earth metals, and unfortunately for the US, rare earth metals are necessary for most electronic components today, which is why the big deal with Ukraine was so important to the US, because guess what? The US needs those. The Ukraine is very rich, quite abundant in rare earth minerals. A cynic might say that's one of the reasons that that Russia was interested in invading rather than unification or anything like that. But there we go. Yeah, I won't be talking about tariffs anymore tonight. I think we've all had enough of that. So what I will be doing, of course, is taking a look at this beast. This is the Type 45 destroyer from Airfix. So, actually, before we get into that, I think so. Tuesday, I had my Tuesday talk video yesterday. Got some really good feedback coming out on that, so it will be a format that I carry on doing. I mean, I was going to do it for like a month anyway and see how it goes, but I'm quite encouraged by the positive comments that I got from it. So thank you, everybody, for those of you who watched it and commented and, so positively. That's great. In terms of what I'm going to be talking about next Tuesday will probably be Airfix. Because obviously the Wessex has just been announced that it's in stock. I received an Airfix parcel yesterday, and let's say it wasn't quite what I expected. And I've got some bits that I think are worth discussing on a Tuesday talk. I'd also like to talk about Revell. That might be a separate one because I think the Airfix one will probably fill the space. Because I also watched their recent video. They've started doing videos, which are, I mean, it's great they're doing something. They're very German, for want of a better word. I've worked with Germans for a long part of my career. I love Germany. I love German culture and German people. But there is a certain, cultural idioms and stereotypes do come from a kernel of truth, and of course, obviously, this is applied broadly across cultures. They're not really applicable necessarily to individuals, but it's kind of the feeling of a country, right? And yeah, the Revell thing is a bit German. But there were several things in there which I found quite interesting, which I think are worth talking about. So I think the next couple of weeks are definitely sort of, we'll see what happens, because obviously it is meant to be a relatively, let's say, current kind of talk. So I don't want to get, ahead and do like a month's worth of stuff and then things happen and then, I don't cover them and what I'm talking about isn't relevant. But yeah. Julian says, my only political post of the night, MAGA baseball caps are apparently made in China. Yeah, indeed. Noticed on Monday when it got a bit wild, viewing figures dropped dramatically. Yeah. Well, people don't come to watch a modeling stream to have hardcore political views pushed into their face, which was a little bit, I think, what happened on Monday, and obviously the pushback from several of us about that. So yeah, it's and I think there was some good attempts to bring it back to modeling from a couple of us. Hopefully that was successful overall, but I think my frustration was clear. Anyway, let's get to modeling and stay away from all of that politics gubbins. I'm going to put my keyboard over here. So if I need to make comments and stuff, I'll have to go over to that area. So just bear with me in that. And let's get sorted. Need to make a little bit of space because this is a very large. So let's get that there. Snippers, big glue. I don't want that Klinsky sable brush knocking about really. And let's change over to the other camera. Let's get that. Here we go. We want the BenQ idea cam, and we don't want any visual effects. So I'm going to bring you over a little bit because you're a little bit skewed there. That's a bit better, isn't it? So here we go. Again, apologies if this goes in and out of focus. On StreamYard, I don't have direct control over the camera. When I'm recording using this camera, I can switch off autofocus and focus on a specific plane, which is useful for modeling. So apologies for that. I can also adjust the screen. I can't, is it kerning? To stop that effect, but I can't do that on StreamYard, so apologies. Whether you can do it on one of their horrifically expensive higher tiers, I don't know. I'm not going to find out because I am not that flush. So, Phil, if you saw my Tuesday talk, you probably, well, you may have missed my Tuesday talk if you don't know whether I am intrigued or not by the 148 scale Halifax. I suggest you go and watch that video. I'll give you my views rather than me talking about it here. Craig says, show us the plastic. Yes, I'm getting there. Antoine, good evening. Good to see you. Oh, I need to change this piece of paper because, as you see, I have some drink staining there. So we probably won't be using this much today. I'll just say that because, as I say, these fiddly bits and this piece which has come off, which looks like a gun shroud. Does it have a gun shroud? Probably. You can just leave that down there. We're not really going to get into too much building today, as I say, because I don't really want to, if you like, leave people behind that don't yet have the kit. I did delay this until I thought people would be able to get it, but we've had a few purchase one in recent days, and as I say, I would rather people actually receive it and were able to do, build along with me. And obviously, you can go back, you can watch the stream and see this as well, but I want to do some of the more basic stuff tonight. So, I mean, the only thing I would say about the Qatari release is 2008 is a long way in the future. You know, if you think 2022, what was happening compared to today, it's a very different world. A lot's happened in the last 3 years. So, I didn't have a YouTube channel in 2022. So, okay. So what I'm going to do is just take out the main hull components to start with and clean those up. So nothing special here. So the one thing is, obviously I'm using single bladed nippers, and this Airfix plastic is quite nice and soft. So generally, when I'm taking out a big piece like this, Obviously, this is all to support the structure and ensure that. So I'm going to rewind myself a little bit. This frame, so the whole thing is a frame, sprue frame. These individual elements of the sprue, obviously. This has two purposes. Well, three purposes, really. Firstly, the main purpose is obviously, here are the areas where plastic is injected, right? High pressure styrene flows down these and into the actual mold itself. So the first job of these is to ensure that you get styrene to where it's supposed to go. Right? That is one of the most important functions of the sprue frame itself and the sprues and the gates, obviously. The second part is obviously once this part is formed and this is ejected from the mold, these have to hold those parts in place. Right? So it's no good having them if they just fall out afterwards. The third part, which kind of runs into that, is also this whole frame protects these pieces whilst in transit from detaching from the frames. Right? So there is always going to be a balance between how big these are. This doesn't really concern us. You know, it doesn't really matter that this is quite chunky. Obviously, this is where the main styrene injection is, because you've got this nice big chunky thing to have good flow through. Where these pieces actually touch here is where the plastic is either, you know, flowing in or overflowing. Is just to make sure that this is all full, basically. But of course, you also want to make these as small as you can, whilst ensuring that plastic can get into the mold. They need to be as small as you can to make the minimum impact on the part when removing the part from the frame. But also they have to be big enough that one, you can get the plastic in, and two, they support the part whilst it's actually in the frame and in transit. So with all of that, when you then come to remove it from the frame, it's worth having a look at how this is laid out. Because if you saw then, I removed all of these because these are the smallest ones. These are having the least effect, right? Same with these at the back. These are the smallest ones, right? I can remove all of these. There's no particular issue here at all. And the piece is still well supported. I can remove these from the side. Again, the smaller ones. It is still very well supported here at these two elements, right? What I'm actually going to do now, before I address these, is actually take this entire side frame off, right? And the reason I'm doing that is because that is going to give me really good access to support this part when I'm removing these last two. Because if I don't, what's going to happen is I'm going to remove one of these. It's going to put enormous pressure on this. And you see, because this is a wide injection, so it's thin in the Y plane, if you like, because it's quite thin. It's not very well focused. I'm sorry about that. But you can see it's quite thin, but it's quite broad. Yep. So for twisting motion, so if I release one of these and I'm not supporting this, that's going to have gravity, because this is quite a big, heavy piece. It's going to pull one end down. It's going to twist that. And that's going to twist more from the actual part than it is from this, because this is a great big chunky injection sprue. Right? This is one of the main injection troughs. So supporting this part and the frame that's going on is really important. That's why I wanted to get rid of all that surrounding thing. So now I can come in, I can remove one, I'm supporting it now, I can feel it trying to move, and then take the other one, and then I can cut it, you see, I've cut it actually quite, like I've got about 1 millimeter there, and about 0.5 millimeter here, proud of the actual structure, so that the structure itself isn't damaged at all. So we don't really talk very much as modelers about removing parts from the frame, but obviously if you can do that without damaging your parts, it's really, really easy. If you end up damaging your parts, then you're going to have to start doing some filling and other bits. Actually, the way this is constructed would kind of alleviate that, but it's best practice, right? Now, as Craig has done here, where he rudely asks if I spilt my margarita. I think it was IPA, actually, Craig. If you have a comment, if you can put comment in capitals or CCC, as Craig has done here, or if you have a question, such as Dave has done here, QQQ, or question capital letters, it just helps me pick out your comment or question from the rest of the chat. And as David said, what is the name you're going to use for your build, Alex? I was thinking about building HMS Dragon. So here are all of the different possibilities. I think there are probably going to be a lot of HMS Dragons because HMS Dragon has this lovely large dragon. So I was also thinking of doing dragon. So I think dragon is probably going to be overrepresented. I don't know, that's a bad thing. It has the best decals, so why not? Right, let's get this this one out. You see, this one is broken off, but it has done so quite cleanly, which is quite nice. So again, I'm going to get rid of all of that. Notice I was cutting out the thinner parts of this injection gate because I don't want to destroy my single-edged nippers. I wouldn't do that with these if that was tack-on plastic. But right, this one we can get rid of without any problems, and then there we go. And we've nicely separated that from the frame. These are big old chunky things. Not ideal for making sprue goo, really, because thickness of this means it takes ages to dissolve. Even if you cut it up, which of course you should. Even bigger, look at the size of these. There's a monstrous injection points. Huge. Martin says, I saw HMS Defender getting launched on the Clyde, a very impressive sight. I think it's difficult to get the scale of how big these things are until you actually see a vessel like this. I mean, this is just a destroyer, and they're huge. I mean, things like aircraft carriers and battleships, I mean, they are staggering. I mean, this is a sizable model, and it's 1/350th scale. So, that's it's a big old beast. All right, let's get to moving some of this. There's quite a lot of attachment points. So again, take all of that away. And then get rid of all of these small ones. So what have we got? We've got 3 each. So taking off 2 at each end, Then I'm going to support it, take these two off, and then the final one. So again, we've just got those little spurs. Hopefully you can just see that. So they're not too big. They're just sort of quite wide, which is absolutely fine. What a monster that is. It's not the prettiest injection tree, is it? I mean, you can see, because this is so big, obviously when it's been popped out, this is still hot. So it is sagging, you know, as it's called. Because there's such a lot of plastic there. A little bit old school in its manufacture, I feel. Nick, just on the Qatari, says the pre-order price is about 140 sterling, which is a bargain if it's as good as their other releases. Yeah, I think, as I mentioned in the video, I think the price is you know, acceptable. I don't think that is the issue. I think there are two issues. One is the sort of pre-order nature, and somebody did say in the comments, didn't Border. Is it? No, not Border. Beacon. Didn't Beacon do that for their releases? It's like, yeah, but Beacon are... Well, there's two things. Beacon are a very small company, and they're doing very small aircraft. So the outlay is a very different level, right? They also weren't giving you 3 years of wait to get those. So, you know, for me, the extended waiting time is the biggest bugbear with the Qatari at Halifax. And I think it does potentially put them at risk, because 3 years is an awful long wait. And who knows what others are going to do in 3 years. I mean, Trumpeter could bring out a 1/48 scale Halifax tomorrow, right? Nobody really knows what they're doing. Yeah, it would be... I mean, what's that going to do for their Kickstarter then? Or pre-order, I should say. I'm also going to take out the stand. There's a couple of reasons that I want to take the stand out. One is it's a great big set of components. The second is, and probably the more important reason, is if you build the stand up, it gives you something to put your work in progress model on as you're going, which I think is a sensible thing to do. In fact, I think if you built Lego Star Wars, like some of the big Star Destroyers and stuff, you have to build the stand first. It actually incorporates a lot of the structure of the main vessel. I'm also going to get rid of a lot of this excess in terms of the injection gates and pieces here. There's an awful lot of plastic. Okay. Piece two. And let's take all of those pieces out of the box and get those on the bench. Then we can put these pieces back. I mean, there aren't a huge number of pieces to this kit. It is quite manageable. You know, it's just the size of the thing, obviously, because it is a destroyer. Now, we just need to check that there's nothing silly that we need to address before we do anything else. So there are some holes to put in. We'll probably do holes. Not sure what the question marks are about, so we'll have to look at what those options are. Other than that, this all looks very straightforward. There's a lot of the way this is built up, and one of the things I mentioned about if you did damage the side of this, the structure, the way that the structure of this kit is built and set up actually helps with that, because these pieces actually, this is sort of cladding which goes on the main pieces. So if you damage part of this, you probably don't need to fill it because it'd probably be covered up by one of these cladding pieces. More important, obviously, when you come to these pieces, you don't want to damage those. All this looks very straightforward. No options here. No options on any of this. And then we come to the main hull pieces. Whether you're going to have it a waterline or full hull model. We'll go full hull, obviously. I don't think there's any options here. No. No options there. Obviously, there are options for the helicopters. We'll spend a little time on the helicopters, I feel. And there's a little bit of an option here with the deployment of the stairs here. Obviously, to allow you to go down into launches and things. Or disembark and embark, I guess. Yeah, so nothing that is obvious in terms of things that are going to trip us up. So, in terms of the way this is made, it's probably worth talking a little bit about the kit. So this piece, the main deck, seems pretty well molded. You know, you've got quite a nice overall set of structures here. I've noticed huge think marks in this turret piece here. You see that? See if it'll focus here. There you can see absolutely huge sink marks. That's because that is a solid piece there. So obviously you've got this big chunk of plastic, which once it's injected, obviously it does have a hollow there, but still means you've got big pieces here. Now obviously you're going to have the side pieces on this, so it's not going to matter too much, but wow. I'm sure that could have probably been designed in a way that wouldn't have resulted in that, but interesting that you don't get it on the front, but it does happen on the sides. Interesting. But this is all very nicely put together. This is a nice casting or molding. I get told off when I say casting. You guys know what I mean. Julian said, as a proud Welshman, sorry, I'll say it again with my teeth in. As a proud Welshman, I say you can never overrepresent the dragon. Of course. I would have to do HMS Diamond, named after our late dog. Well, I assume you mean that your late dog was named after HMS Diamond, or Diamond has the same name as HMS Diamond. Not that HMS Diamond was named after your dog, right? I mean, if that's the case, that's pretty cool, but... question, will you prime or paint on the sprue? No. No, I won't. I almost never do, Greg. No. Just no. I am quite a long way behind. What would be good, especially from a newbie point of view, would be talking through your decision process of what to do first. Are the instructions right in the order? Maybe a separate video on it. So I will do that as we go through this, Julian. So it's a really good point. So as you saw what I did there, I'll just hide your comment a little bit. So I referred to the instructions there, but I've already made like my own plan of how I want to go about this. So obviously I've separated out these main large pieces for a couple of reasons. Firstly is they are going to get in the way if I left them on the frames, right? If they're in the way, they potentially could get damaged. So I would prefer to take them off the frame, have them separate, and then I can clean them up, and then they're, you know, I can put them out of the way afterwards. What was the other thing I was going to mention there? Yeah, and then the second part of that is I haven't really thought about the build yet. So at the moment, I've just taken these parts off to get them out of the way and to clean them up. I've referred to the instructions only, as you saw before, in terms of, is there any pre-work that I need to do that's going to trip me up? Obviously, this is the only one that I could find, is the drilling of these holes, right? So I haven't looked forward into what else I'm going to be doing at this point. So I'm not to that point in this process yet. I'm very much just, you know, I want to get those big parts and clean them up, and then go from there. Interestingly, and I think this is always worth doing, this hasn't really, these instructions are not current Airfix quality, I would say. They're good. They're not quite as good as present ones, because this is kind of very vague, and it's like 1A. It's just, it hasn't really shown you like, okay, this is the big hull piece that you need to do all of this on. Say in the way that the Sea King, 148 scale Sea King that Airfix have, that really had it laid out in much bigger and better ways. I do apologize for the camera. Come on. Thank you. I say, I wish I could fix that, but hey ho. The only thing I did other than that was look forward just to see, is there stuff that will trip me up? And I couldn't see anything. But at this stage, I'm not putting stuff together, so it doesn't really matter too much. Obviously, one of the things I am doing is building this out of sequence. Now, this is completely separate from the rest of the kit, so it has no impact on the build whatsoever. These different sizes, because that's an appalling fit. Otherwise, yes, I think they are. That's good. They are handed. Yeah. Okay. So we'll clean that up shortly. So this piece seems nice. This piece, again, looks pretty good. The surface here is nice and smooth. It's not shiny, but it's smooth. You have here some discoloration. This is just caused by the plastic as it flows in, how it dries. It's not, there's no surface imperfection there at all. It's all exactly the same. It's just purely an optical effect. It's not a structural defect or anything like that. So if ever you see that, I can't remember what it's called. There is a specific name for it. If anybody knows, please do put it in comments. But this is an optical artifact. It is not a structural defect at all. But this, you know, it's nicely molded. You've got some little location points here for the main prop drives. Little piece here where the bow insert goes. I'm not quite sure why they did it like that. Probably because it comes out again, and it would be a difficult piece to mold otherwise in two pieces. That's nice. Now, where things get a little bit less nice, and something I urge people to watch out for on their own kits, are these side pieces. Now, this one is pretty good. See that the curve of the bow here, it's all nice and straight. And these are, you know, relatively stealthy ships. They have these big angled plate surfaces to reduce their radar cross signature. I believe one of these destroyers only has the same radar cross section as like a small fishing boat. It's my understanding. Obviously, we've got cleanup to do on this, but and you do have some little bits of internal detailing where you've got things like this is where the ladder comes down. But that's pretty good. This one, that was from the Hornby Airfix curse. Can you see that? It's not supposed to have that wave in it. That is a, guess what? That's a QC issue. So you can see that is something that we are going to have to ensure gets fixed. And whether that is, you know, fixed by, we're going to have to be careful how we glue it so that it conforms and the structure of the hull pushes it back, or we're going to have to do some more remedial measures to it. But that's the port side of the ship. So check your port sides. I would check them both. But that's a manufacturing defect, right? It's pointless writing to Airfix about these because I don't believe they have any in stock in the UK. But that's fixable. It's not the end of the world. It's just annoying, right? It shouldn't happen. But as we all know, the QC procedures are not up to snuff. Okay, so that's the first thing I would encourage people to check. You can see we do have ejector pin marks. You can see them nicely if I turn the light here, because this is quite a smooth, I'd say satin finish, almost like matte satin. And the ejector pin marks are a nice glossy satin, so you can easily see where those ejector pins are. There's a lot of them, but they are very, very shallow. There's absolutely no point in actually filling any of these. You will not see any of these. They're all nicely out of sight. I like the way that they've done this. But if these were visible, these would not be difficult to get rid of. This is a light sand. You know, they are 0.1 of a millimeter, I would say, at the edges. They are not egregious in any sense. There's certainly nothing here like the Airfix Stalwart ejector pin marks, that's for sure. Right, let me just quickly check back on comments. John Alec just said, I just tried to pre-order the Qatari Halifax and you could not select United States, which, considering its prices in dollars, is a bit bizarre. Yeah, I think Brian just says that. Strange that the price is in dollars, yet you can't afford it shipped to America. Okay. Craig says, thankfully, these sync marks are not on my kit. Okay, that's good. Okay, so these are, in which case, knowing that, Craig, thanks for letting me know. Check your kits, guys, because it does seem that the ubiquitous Hornby curse is still present. Andy Freeman says, I'm hoping someone will release a 1350th HMS Queen Elizabeth carrier. I believe Trumpeter already, if they haven't already, they are releasing it. I think I've seen the release note for that. They announced it last year. I think it's 1350th. It might be 1700th actually. I think. No, I'm pretty sure it's 1700th actually. Yeah, I'll correct myself there. I think what you referred to is called the Plimsoll line. Thank you, Julian. So we thought we were getting away from tariffs and trade, but orders and shipments to the USA have been paused until a system to collect US government tariff fees has been introduced by New Zealand Post. Yeah. Good luck. So it won't be one of the first 1,000. Yeah. Yeah. Martin says, I've been working on my Type 45 for quite some time, and all the large pieces go in different directions. Dear. It's a very soft plastic and quite compliant. Yes, New Zealand do have dollars, I believe. Like Australia has dollars. They're just not worth as much. Okay. So let's actually get to let's get some glasses on so I can actually see. And let's get to cleaning some of this stuff up. So whenever I'm cleaning up big pieces or any sort of pieces of these burrs from removing them from the sprue, I always use a scalpel. It's just what I am used to. It's what I used to use because my father used to use a knife to clean this stuff up. So I always did as a child, and it's kind of stuck with me. I'm used to using a scalpel from sort of like medical biological training. So it's natural to me. However, it is not the only way to clean up. And obviously it does run the risk, especially with soft plastic, of overcorrecting. So it's easier to gouge the plastic if you're using a scalpel. It's quick. You know, I've got quite a big burr there, and I can just a couple of little shims off that, and it's gone. Right. Safer way to do it, of course, is to use an abrasive. Now, I had, there we go, in my Man's Model Moments toolkit. It's actually Man's Model Moments toolkit plus this. Throwing some other bits in. Doesn't normally contain the extra nippers. I do actually have these available in the shop at the moment. These are Ruitool. It's a Japanese company that make single-bladed nippers. So I got these. I was wondering where I had them actually. Just realized I put them in here. So these are your kind of Disbay type. And these are the Ruitool. So you see they have slightly narrower jaws. You can see that? Slightly more pointed. And the action on them, just to give you an idea, I'm applying like very little force there. By applying the same force with this, it almost completely closes them. So this spring is a lot gentler. So I find these are really nice. Single bladed nippers. I sell these for £20. So let's say they're Japanese, not Chinese. Whether they're made in China and shipped to Japan, I don't know. But Ruitool are a Japanese brand. They do all kinds of stuff. They're not on the website at the moment. I should probably put them up. I think I've got like 10 sets in the shop. But if you do want them, please get in touch. I'll post up a listing. I'm just massively behind with getting stuff on the website, as everybody probably knows by now. But anyway, safer ways to remove burrs. You have abrasives. So you have these most, I would say, big companies like Revell and Italeri and stuff include a file. I would never use this on this kit. These are way too abrasive. Right, this would take mass. In fact, let's get one of those big. Here we go. Here is one of those big sprues. Right, let me just do a single pass, and you can see how much that's. Well, actually, that's not very visible. Right. So that, come on, focus for me. Can you see how much I just tore out there? About 0.5 millimeter here, this little piece. And that is on this big, thick, chunky piece. It's just way, way too abrasive for this type of plastic. And I think this old Airfix plastic with this kind of coarse, with this kind of coarse abrasive, it tears. Can you see this? See how it's got this like feathery, papery bit on, where it's actually ripped the plastic, sort of torn it away. So I wouldn't use a file. This, however, is quite a coarse grade. This is about, say, 180 or 200 emery board. There is a more delicate one in here. Oh, that's weird. I must have spilt some glue. It's gone weird. But you don't really need to go that fine. And of course, a little pass like that gets you to this very, very tiny, just do a little 45 degree over the edge, and that's completely gone. So let's do this other one. You can run it along the edge if you're really nervous. There we go. So this is the safer way. This is what I do. It's just the thing I prefer about the scalpel. Again, its familiarity is one thing, but also you won't really be able to see it, I don't think. But this, there's a little lip of. Can you see that there? Probably not. A tiny lip of where the gate is still there, just on this side. And because it's sort of gone in, you probably wouldn't be able to get that easily using the sandpaper or sanding stick. Okay, so those are all the ones on the bottom. More important ones are these ones on the top. If this was harder plastic, I'd do this in several passes, but because this is so soft, it's easy just to take them off in their entirety. So one of the things with a lot of modeling I find is a lot of the time is spent in prep, right, rather than actually doing your building. The prep work for me is the sort of more time-consuming part of a build. Now, some people enjoy it, some people don't. You know, it can be relaxing, it can be monotonous. It really depends on how much prep work you've got, where it is, how difficult it is. You know, stuff like this is easy, you know, and it's not really onerous. But it's worth spending a bit of time just going over everything, making sure you've got all of this, because if you find a bit that you need to adjust when your hands are kind of covered in glue and you have no, you know, your desk is covered in stuff and you don't have anywhere to put anything, it's more problematic then. This is pretty clean though, so that's not too bad at all. You just have a little look at the chat as I go along. Okay, and yeah, it's 1/700th. Hopefully they'll do it. Yeah, it's quite possible. Quite possible. I mean, now they've got it. Obviously, it'll all be in CAD, so maybe they will. I guess it depends on how how well that one works. Nick says, I assume here in the UK for the Qatari Halifax, we would be hit by VAT and custom charges, but we would end up paying £140 for the model, £28 VAT, and £18 Royal Mail collection fee. Yeah, that's a good shout. Although bizarrely, so the first of these, so John Alec is of course my US exporter of these kits. So many thanks to John Alec, who has kind of enabled this group build and the distribution of these kits. You know, Hornby can't manage to get them in the UK, but we've managed it together. And the first lot of kits he sent me was held by Royal Mail, and they did exactly that. They slapped charges on it and a collection fee, you know, the admin fee, which is, you know, often a big part of that. This time, John sent me 2 parcels, and they were both just delivered directly. Go figure. And I think I can't remember. Did you send them to my? This one was definitely sent. They were sent to the business. So, you know, you would have thought, yeah, they're definitely going to get that charge, but no. So yeah, it's weird. I would much rather when you buy something like that, they just say, hey, it's going to be, you know, whatever it is, X amount import duty, you know, because then you could just pay it up front and they just deliver it. Because it's not so much the charge that I object to, it's the fact that it gets delayed and then they charge you an admin fee for something that you couldn't have avoided. You know, it's just like, well, I don't want the admin fee. I just want to pay up front and you just deliver it, you know? I'm giving you this bullshit about charging me £8 for a badly filled in postcard. You know, come on. Okay, that's much nicer because it doesn't have the big wave in the. I mean, we expect waves on ocean-going vessels, but not actually in the hull. that's a little bit outside of remit, I feel. So these ones are a little bit trickier because they are actually on the whole surface itself. So I'm kind of being a little bit more careful here. Well, I wasn't careful before. It's just the repercussions of getting this wrong are greater. The last thing I want to do is start fiddling. Unless I don't, if I absolutely have to, I will, but I don't really want to induce more filling than I have to. Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me now? Ah, good. Yeah, I think when I moved my microphone, I must have just knocked the lead. So apologies for that, and thank you all for letting me know. Thanks, John Alec, for sending me the note in Discord. That popped up very nicely. And hopefully I wasn't muted for too long. So, so yeah, if you didn't hear me saying it, I was just saying one of the nice things about single-bladed nippers, nice, sharp single-bladed nippers, is that you can use them on larger pieces of. I don't think I've got any here. I think I've trimmed them all, but of injection gates to actually remove the main one, and then you're doing a lot less work with your blade or file. By file, I mean, abrasive. If this was tack and plastic, you would be using a file, of course. A diamond file, probably. Ah, okay, there's a bit more there. And one just right at the end here as well. I'm just running my fingers down to feel if there's any remaining. Little bit there, and there's a couple at the end here. So I'm trimming these, holding it upright so I can see, that I'm not digging into the sort of top deck of the hull there whilst I'm trimming. And in fact, for that last little bit, I'm just going to use the abrasive, if I can find out where I put it. Like with most things, I've tidied it up. Whenever you can't find anything, it's usually because you've tidied it up, or somebody has tidied it up for you. Yes, so on the scalpel blades, Mark, not as yet. They will be coming shortly. So just a lot of other stuff has been going on, and they require a minimum order, which has pushed it back a little bit. Julian says, off topic, but funny, it works years ago. We tried to organise a seniors night out at a local pub called the Old Brewery, but we failed. We generally couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery. Yeah, so scalpel blades, not at the moment, Mark, but they will be imminently, I would say. Right, so there we have these main pieces. And it doesn't look like we've done a lot, but actually, once you collect all of the collected shavings together, there's a fair amount of stuff there. So, is that the wavy one or the nice one? That's the nice one. Just do a little test fit just to see kind of what sort of ballpark we're in. So we get a rough idea of how the thing is going together. Okay, so there's some fairly positive location against the main hull there, which is good. So I don't think that wave in the starboard is going to be too much of an issue. Yeah, you see there, you can see how much comes out, but because you've got this very large surface area that this is actually going to get glued up against, that kind of takes out a lot of it. The little bit of wave that goes out here, but that's going to get pulled back in when we put it on this. We just need to be careful that we, how we attach this to make sure that that stays. So we'll probably need to tape that lower hull, I imagine, when we get to that. But overall, that doesn't look too bad at all. Good. Right, so those are the main pieces all kind of cleaned up, ready for us for when we actually start building next time. Hi, Steve. Good to see you. So this is obviously where we have our big decals. Where did the decal sheet go? I've lost it. That's not it. That's not it. There it is. It's slipped down there. This is where we have our big decals for the actual name of the ship. So I'm guessing one side has Type 45 Destroyer, and then you have the 6 choices: Daring, Defender, Duncan, Dauntless, Diamond, or Dragon. Although I have a slight issue with the Dragon and Defender and Daring. You see, they're not centered. I'm guessing it's because they have lower cases. But you can see how HMS Duncan, Dauntless, and Diamond are all nicely centered in those red and blue lines. They haven't adjusted the size. They should really adjusted the size of the font, I'm guessing, to make the void between top and bottom the same, because obviously they're restricted in the overall height. That looks a bit naff. I must say that's slightly disappointing. Is it disappointing enough that I wouldn't do one of those? Now I've seen it, I can't unsee it. You see, the thing is, if lots of people are doing Dragon, I mean, these are nice decals, but I could use those on something else. That's really annoying because the registration of these is really good. Of how these all look, great. Yeah, Type 45 Destroyer is better because they've got the distance between the T and the P and the Y is the same there. But because you've only got the G here, whereas you've got the Y and at either ends here, that evens it out more. I couldn't do HMS Duncan because I couldn't do anything called Duncan. It just reminds me of Blue Peter back in the 80s. I'd probably do Dauntless. That's a very traditional British Navy name, isn't it? Anyway, up in the air. I haven't decided. But anyway, my point was these are your big areas that those are going to be on. Now, because they are decals, these do need to be quite smooth, because if they're not, they're going to show every single little imperfection. So whilst I am cleaning these up, the injection gate marks with my scalpel in the first instance, I will be then sanding them as well. There's quite a lot of I don't know how visible these eject pin marks are going to be. Sadly, those ejection, see, this is not such a well-designed piece. I understand why the eject pin marks are on this side functionally because of these pieces, but why didn't they just make these separately? Because this is your up face, so it is visible, whereas this is your down face. There's no ejector pin marks here, but you're never going to see this. So if they put the ejector pin marks, the ejector pins, pushing the part out that way, that would have been great. Sadly, that's not the case. And that's a small thing, but it's irritating. Attention to detail. I think that if I had to get one thing, well, not one thing, but a set of things that show why Airfix are not at the level of Tamiya yet, it is consistency, and I take that from design through to QC, production, everything. Because some of the quality of what they're doing is very good, but it's not consistent, and that it's not consistent between designers, and it's not consistent in terms of how it's produced. And then the other thing is that attention to detail. Just things like how do you design so that you don't get this sort of thing happening. And some of their designers do it, and again, this goes back to consistency, and others don't necessarily. Right, these big ones. This part. Yeah, some quite ugly ejector pin marks here. And if you don't remove these now, they're going to be a sod when it's together. And you could argue that you won't really see them, but do you want to take that risk? I mean, yes, they are at least on the opposite side, which is good. You know, they're on the inside. Even so, look, the fit of that is you're going to have to fill that. That's a bit disappointing. Oh, they're not handed. Okay. Yeah, that's. You've also got quite ugly flash on those, which may not matter if they need filling, but maybe that is disrupting the fit. I don't know. And then we have these really nasty seam lines. But because it is nice soft plastic, I can use the flat of my blade to scrape those off. Now this is a reasonably old blade as well. I wouldn't necessarily do this with a new blade, both because it will ruin the blade and also it'll be probably too sharp and remove too much. There we go. A little better. And this really nasty one underneath, which is going to need a little bit of cutting before draping these bits. Yeah, well, as you can see from the amount of material that I've moved, there's a lot more that's come off those. Probably, I think more there. There's probably about 3 times more there than I've removed from all of those whole pieces. Which is a bit of a shame because, you know, it's almost like this is a bit of an afterthought, a bit of like, oh yeah, we just, you know, do the stand as well. But the thing is, if the stand is going to look crappy, it's going to detract from the actual look of the boat itself. It's a bit like the frame on a painting, right? If you've got a work of art and it's in a nice frame, you know, which looks nice, it's not chipped, it's not cracked and stuff, it enhances the picture. You don't notice the frame, you're not looking at the frame, but what it does is it doesn't draw the eye. If that frame is cracked and has paint chipped off it, it looks nasty, you're going to be looking at the frame, which is not what you want. You want to be looking at the artwork. So, you know, again, it's just that little kind of attention to detail part. Yeah, there's some sink marks in that. It doesn't matter, of course, but and then these quite ugly, as I mentioned, quite ugly ejector pin marks, which I'm actually going to have to cut off. They're about 0.1, 0.2 millimeters proud of the surface here. So not a huge amount, but enough to catch the light, enough to be noticeable. So if we just remove enough that they are not noticeable, I think we'll be good. Then probably we can scrape across to, because it's so soft, so that we won't see them. Because they're going to be awkward to sand because of all of the angles. I don't really want to spend that much time on something which, as I say, is not going to be terribly visible, but we just don't want it to draw the eye so that somebody sees it and is like, oh, you know, look at that. I don't want them to be doing that. I want to be looking at HMS, whatever it is, whatever it ends up being. Okay. Just checking back on chat, making sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. I think we are about there with the end pieces. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, there we go. There's about 6 to 10 times as much as we previously generated. Marvelous. Right, so let's give this a quick going over. I don't really want to remove a lot of material here. I just want to make sure it's flat and smooth. Clean up those edges. I'm not terribly happy with this, I must say. You can see there's still a little visible. You see this? Imagine this experience that didn't have me having to do this. Okay, how would that be possible? Basically, if these pieces, the two plaques, were just separate, your part count would go up by 2. This piece could be turned the other way to eject you in the mold. It could have been cast this way, so it could have been pressed out from there, and then you wouldn't have had any of these ejector marks. And yeah, I may be being a little bit pedantic here, but believe me, I don't normally worry about stuff that you can't see. But the thing is, this is a stand. I don't think it's going to obscure that the ship itself is going to obscure these elements of the stand. It just seems a bit shit. You know, I'm going to do a cheaty thing here and kind of scrape over these pieces. So I'm not having to sand the entire thing, and it's just going to remove the appearance of those. Because the other thing is, you will be looking down here for the nameplate. So, you know, it's just one of those little design things we just think if they'd only put a little tiny bit more thought into that. And the thing is, these also make it awkward to clean them up. These ones are fine. These ones at the end, no issue. Yeah, I can scrape in there easy. These ones, just where you want to scrape is where they are. So, and you can't come at it the other way because they're also there. So it's like, eh. So this is not the best in terms of how this has been thought out. And again, many of you may think I am going OTT for a stand, but again, if you're going to display this, I mean, the way to get away from this, of course, is just do the waterline version. You won't need a stand. Put it in some resin. But if you've gone to the trouble of making the kit and making it look nice, and then you put it on a stand, which kind of looks half-assed, you know, it's going to look half-assed. Right. Now, I'm kind of with you, Martin. I don't normally do floaty things either. And as floaty things go, this is about as basic as it gets, right? A Type 45 in this sort of scale. It's not dealing with silly little bits of photo etch kind of things like Craig enjoys. Sorry, Craig. So just on that point, actually, I'm not going to be adding any aftermarket to this. I think John Alec looked at in the aftermarket set for this, and it's not all of that, I believe. It's quite expensive, and it doesn't really add a lot. I mean, I wasn't going to add aftermarket to it anyway, but that kind of also factors in, I guess. The rear of these is also really ugly. These bits are really, like, quite badly molded. Okay, I think that's enough cleanup on that. I think there's enough there to not draw your eye. That's all I'm trying to do is make it so that it's not going to draw the eye, that it looks clean, decent. You know, I think under a coat of primer, that these are nice and smooth so that the decals sit flat and smoothly on them. Right, there we go. So let's actually make something. Let's make the stand. There we go. Get some actual modeling done. Yes, I would agree with that. I think that's a perfect rendition of what it is. Like, oh yeah, we need a stand. Yeah, it's kind of a bit shit. Okay, actually removing that flash out of the end there does make that sit more flush. It's still going to need some filling though, but less. Oh, excuse me. Breathing in some Airfix plastic dust there. That's probably not advisable. So let's give it some generous quantity of extra thin. And I believe that should react pretty well, given its nice soft Airfix plastic. But yeah, an afterthought, which is a bit shit, I think is a perfect description. Martin. So I'm making sure that I've got these the right way around. They've got a little notch in them. This is all they are. There is nothing more to this stand. So it's not like we are screwing up another part of the build or anything doing this. This is completely standalone, if you excuse the pun. And it literally is just these 3 pieces, like so. So you can see, again, let's see if we can get this to focus. Yeah, so you can see nice and flush at the bottom, but there is quite a lot of gap around in terms of the tolerance of that. It's it's worse on this piece. So it will need filling and smoothing out, because again, otherwise it will look like a plastic stand rather than something which is, you know, a little bit more. It's still going to look like a stand, but if it's got big holes in it, it would look a bit shit, wouldn't it? Good night, Julian. Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. So then the other part is, of course, that other prep work. Is where do the holes go? So there are quite a few. Now you can see them underneath. So this, I believe, indicates, all of this indicates that this is this way round, upside down, so that you can see where to drill those holes. So there are quite a few for us to tackle. I should have my drill bits here. Can I find them is another thing. I definitely have them. They were definitely here. Walk among yourselves. Come on, Alex, where are they? Let's move some of this. Pablo's moved them. That's my story. I'll stick to it. Oh, come on. They were definitely here. I most definitely had them. Because I forgot my drill, but I definitely have my drill bits. And with how soft the plastic is, that will not be an issue. Ah, dear. Should have prepped for this, shouldn't I? Mark says, I do like floaty things, especially when I get it right. Photo etch is terribly fiddly and the super glue is what really drives me nuts. However, the end result can be amazing. It looks like waterline is the way to go then. I did put them in a safe place. That's absolutely right, Simon. Cheers, Indy. We'll catch you on the next one. So yeah, next week is when we'll actually get to the proper building. As I say, I've kind of procrastinated a little bit tonight. I've tried to show you the cleanup in the way that I'm going to look at it. I was hoping to do these holes. It's a real mystery because they're in a, I know the container I'm looking for. exactly what it looks like, and I thought it was just on the side here, and no, I haven't put it in there, have I? No, not got moved over there. I've changed my setup here a little bit and organized it a bit more, and it's whenever you organize something, things go missing. Oh, come on. Right. 1 second. Nope, don't know where they are. However, let me show you another thing. In lieu of that, you also have this little beast. So this is a little digital microscope. Is it going to go on? Yes, it is. There we go. Hello, it says. So I thought this would be quite a nice little thing to be able to show you. I mean, if you want things in extreme close-up, then this is the way to go. So there we are. That is the see if we can focus on that. Here we go. Can you see that? Obviously, I'm showing you a screen of a screen. It does have a USB output, so I should be able to do this as a camera in StreamYard as well. You see that piece there? That is that little mount on that. So in terms of being able to show, you know, extreme detail of pieces, I should, that there is one of those holes. Yeah. Get over there. That's one of those holes. So let me just see if I can get you something a little bit more interesting. So for example, here's the ICM Hamas. Let's get that screen hopefully so you can see it better. See if we can. There we go. So there you can see that. What I'm pointing to. See, here's that's the tip of my scalpel. Look, you can see how blunt it is. So this here. So that's what I'm. This is what I was showing you. This little area here. See if we can get the tread on the wheels. There we go. That's the tread on the wheel there. We've got that's the filler cap. There we go. That's pretty good. You can see that pretty well. So yeah, if you need to see like where your errors are, this is the thing to get. It's very polite as well. It says hello and goodbye when you switch it on and switch it off. So I think, guys, that's all I'm going to be able to get to show you tonight, because I cannot find those. One more minute. Cannot find where those drill bits are at all. No, that's not them. They're not in my special case. Unless, could they be under the Yag Tiger? No, I don't think they are. Nope, not under the Yag Tiger. That's a shame. Not in there. Not in the mouse. No. Absent without leave, I'm afraid. Hey, good to see you, Nunu. Oh, that. This beast is the Kamaz. It's a big Ukrainian box truck. So obviously ex-Soviet, chunky great thing, 1/35th scale. So it's actually the same size as a 1/24th scale Land Rover. Which gives you a kind of idea of the scale of the thing. It's massive, massive, great thing. Really, I mean, I don't really enjoy trucks. I'm not a truck guy, but this has actually been a really nice build. You know, very, very ICM. You know, it's the entire chassis. You know. I'm sure that's not true, Paul. Most of my builds, the errors are noticeable about 12 inches. Sure, that's not true. Yeah, so we need to. So the ones we need are basically all of these ones here. I think there's 2 on each side. I think, oh, those are already done. Have I already done those, or were those done before? So those. Okay. So those are for the CWIS. And these look like they're for harpoon launchers. I'm not sure what 14F is. I presume those are harpoon launchers. Generally, anti-ship missiles go that way. Because I think, does she have C-Scepter? I think she has C-Scepter, but I think that's in VLS, right? I don't know. I don't know too much about the Type 45. It might not be harpoon. It might be. Oh, it's the one that we developed jointly with the Norwegians, isn't it? Or that they developed and we bought. I can't remember. So let's have a quick look, actually. Let's go for a new tab. Let's have a look at Type 45, shall we? Type 45. Known as the daring class. Okay. Electronic warfare decoys. Armament. Okay. Principal anti-air missile system. Yeah, Asta 15. So yeah, those 48. So those are all the vertical launches. So Asta 15s and Asta 30s. C-Sector to be fitted from starting on HMS Defender from 2026. Okay. Surfaced air, blah, blah, blah. Anti-ship. Oh, yeah, harpoons. They are harpoons. Okay. To be replaced by naval strike missile. That's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah. So they're harpoon launchers, basically. 220-meter phalanx Seawiz. Okay. There we go. And then you've got all the Merlin, Wildcat, and all their stuff that they take. So basically, those are harpoon launchers on the deck and Seawiz, and then you've got the VLS for all of the primary anti-aircraft, anti-air, I should say, because it's anti-missile as well. The daring class. Kidoki. Well, there we go. That answers the question. So certainly want all of those on mine. So I think that is the primary VLS center, isn't it? And then the gun goes on there. Then we've got the harpoons there and Seawiz back here. Alrighty, guys. Well, I'm not sure there's too much more I can do tonight, really, without wanting to get into the main build until more people have received kits and could potentially build along. But prep, I think, is a big part of any build, especially when you got something like this, which has a lot of big flat pieces, right? In terms of how I'm going to approach this build, it was a good question that was asked. So obviously, I'll be doing this drilly bit. We'll do that at the start of next time. Other than that, I mean, looking at this, it does look like this follows a pretty logical sequence. Okay, there are some things that I will not be doing to start with. So looking across this, it's unlikely I'm going to be doing these internal pieces straight off. I'll try and avoid that if possible, because anything that's going to require painting, I would prefer to put off. So I will probably actually avoid those sections if I can. And it looks like that's all at the rear, right? I think. It's interesting that there's a lot of stuff which is basically done on the deck here, and then that's brought onto the hull at a later date. Oh, okay. So you've got some internal strengthening pieces here to form the hull, which is interesting. Okay, and we have to do those pieces before we can put the sides on because, well, unless, of course, I like the way you've got this question mark of whether you're going to cover this up before you... So you could build all of that internal bit with the lifeboats and stuff. And then, is it lifeboats or are they just launches? I think that might just be launches. And then you just close it up and you can't see any of it. Quite funny. Yeah, because then you're bringing that in. So you have to really do that before you can put the hull on, which is unfortunate because I would really love to be able to do this first, but you can't. You can't. No. Bugger. Okay. So yeah, it's always worth looking ahead to see what you can and what you can, what you can and what you can't do in order. So sometimes for things that you can easily skip, other times the stuff that you just can't, right? And this is something that it looks like you just can't. Yeah, these are that's all the VLS cells, like for the asters, the C-septors. So yeah, still, I think I'll be able to do a lot of. I'll probably start from like no, not 10. We'll have to see next time exactly what I can get away with. Because I don't really want to have to do internal painting right off the bat. We'll see. Okay. Right, guys, I think that's all for this evening then. Yeah, it is a very big beast, that Kamaz. Very Soviet in its construction. So let me flip across. Let's get the background going again. There we go. So thanks, guys, for popping over tonight. As I say, really more about the prep, kind of obviously how I get some of the parts out, especially big parts. You know, it's important to, I mean, it's important with small parts as well. It really depends on the structure of them. But obviously, the most important thing is to remove the part from the sprue or the sprue from the part in a way that doesn't damage the part, because ultimately that's the bit you want. It doesn't matter what happens to the sprue, the injection gates and everything. And hopefully I kind of showed you a few things there on large parts, just tricks to avoid it tearing. That's the main thing, is to avoid it tearing off. And to avoid, you know, if you're using more basic nippers like these, you know, double-ended, you know, your standard double-ended nippers, you know, 350 kind of price range ones, that you're cutting a fair bit away from the part, you know, back it off a couple of millimeters, because they stress and crack the plastic, unlike your single-bladed, you know, like the Rural ones, which nicely slice through and don't put that stress on the part. Overall, I'm liking the way the kit looks. I think it's going to go together okay. I'm not very impressed with the the stand, but you know, that's it does, as others have said, look like a bit of an afterthought into it. You know, it'd be much better if these side pieces were molded as separate pieces this whole thing turned upside down, so it could be ejected from the mold on the back rather than the front, so you didn't get those ejection pin marks that we've had to remove. And the same with these. You do need to just pay a little bit of attention to those, just to reduce their visibility, because we are going to obviously spray this probably black, and then obviously put the decals on, but these need to be nice and smooth for those decals. And we do need to fill these bits, because even sprayed black, you're going to notice those holes. So yeah, it was just one of those things that detracts a little bit, and I don't want it to detract from the overall model. I would rather it enhance it, by not drawing attention, than have it draw the eye and spoil things a bit. But that's okay, Adrian. There is no requirement to join building the Type 45 along with us. There is a group build. Obviously, people want to join that. That's great. If people want to add to it and doing other bits, also good. But yeah, it's I'm going to leave the main building to next week, when we actually hopefully people that have ordered will receive their kits, hopefully get those this week, and then we can actually see how the thing goes together, and what bits I can skip and what bits I can't. Okay, guys, so thank you all very much for joining tonight. Good to have you as always, and hopefully see you on the next one. There'll be another Tuesday talk next week. As I said, probably be on Airfix, because the Wessex has just been announced as being released, and then we will see what happens thereafter. Other than that, guys, have a very pleasant rest of your week, and hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers, guys.